again. This is Matt Gaspers, Managing Editor of Catholic Family News. I'm here with the Fatima Center in Rome, continuing our coverage of the Synod on Young People, the Faith, and Vocational Discernment. It's day 8 for us here in the Eternal City. And for those of you who have been watching our video updates, you know that we've been trying to make our way around town to some of the iconic landmarks in Rome. For example, we've shot a video report at Castel Sant'Angelo, which is an old, about a 4th century fortress. And we were also at the Colosseum to reflect on the lives and the witness of the martyrs, and to remind ourselves of how much we need the spirit of the martyrs, that Catholic spirit of sacrifice, especially for the youth, to infuse that into them, which sadly they are not getting here at the Synod, which is very worldly in its orientation, so it seems. And today we are back in St. Peter's Square, as you see behind me, the magnificent Basilica of St. Peter the Apostle himself, whose relics are buried under the main altar in the church. So today, the reason why we're shooting in St. Peter's Square is that today is a very significant anniversary. Today is October 11th, and on this day in 1962, Pope John XXIII opened the Second Vatican Council. And unfortunately with it, he opened the church to the spirit of the world. And he allowed the modernism that had been driven underground by his predecessors to rear its ugly head and basically take over the church. And it's been infesting it ever since. And I'm seeing so much of that here at this Synod with each passing day. Each press conference I attend, it becomes more evident to me that the forces of modernism are very alive and well and active in the church today. So this theme of the council seems to be recurring in the Synod. Just to give a few examples, I've reviewed the Instrumentum Laboris, the working document that the bishops are using for their discussions during the Synod working sessions. And it speaks very highly of the council. It's basically the reference point for the document. The very first paragraph mentions there's an indispensable connection, something to that effect, between the message to the youth from the council and this Synod on young people. Another example would be during the press conferences yesterday and today. There's been explicit praise for the council and for Pope Francis, who encourages and points to the council as the reference point for the church. For example, Mexican Cardinal Aguirretes of Mexico City, he had this to say: "The Church, faced with a change of era such as the one we are living through, needs to adapt itself to comply with its mission, and as Pope Francis told us, Vatican II has already signaled the pathway," end quote. He said that during yesterday's press conference. And then today we have the rather notorious Archbishop Bruno Forte, who was known to was involved in some controversies during the family synods, coming out in favor of homosexual relationships and such. And he had this to say during today's press conference: "What is at stake at this synod is what church do we wish for in the future. The presence of Pope Francis is a great gift because he is a man open to the future of God and conveys his enthusiasm towards God's surprises," end quote. And also during today's press conference, he was praising modern ecumenism and basically saying it's the way forward. We have to further the ecumenical movement. And these, of course, are novelties of the council, unheard of prior to 1962. So I intended to ask a question yesterday and then again today at the press conference to challenge this modernist narrative, but unfortunately it seems I have been blacklisted by the Vatican press office director. He allowed me to ask a question on the first day that we were here, my first press conference, about the traditional Latin Mass, and after that, apparently it's one and done for me. I don't think I'm allowed to ask any more questions, it seems. So in lieu of asking in the press conference, I'll review with you all what I was going to bring up, or attempt to, there seems to be a very clear agenda emerging here at the Synod, subtly but clearly. For example, the Synod Fathers who have been present at the press conferences, giving us short few remarks and then answering questions, I've been keeping track of who they are and if they come from a particular bishops' conference, like if they're here representing their region and were voted in by their brother bishops. And what I found is that a clear majority of them are called members of pontifical nomination. In other words, Pope Francis handpicked them to participate in the Synod, so they're not representing their local bishops' conference. They are the hand-chosen appointees of Pope Francis. So it seems that the deck is again being stacked, similar to how it was at the family synods. And also the way the deck is being stacked in favor of the modernists. I believe it was yesterday the list of members of the commission who will be drafting the final document that the Synod Fathers give to the Holy Father, Pope, and then he has to write his post-synodal apostolic exhortation, assuming that it hasn't already been written, which it probably has. Most of the members, again, of that are friends, are allies of Pope Francis. So for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, it seems very clear that there's a modernist agenda at work here and that a predetermined outcome has already been decided upon. So to wrap up this video report, I had an interesting comparison come to mind that I want to share with you that seems very appropriate for this occasion, the anniversary of the opening of Vatican II. So when I was on the plane coming over to Rome, it's a very long flight, of course, so I decided to see if there was maybe an interesting movie to occupy some of my time on the plane. And I came across one that is based on a novel, a famous novel called Fahrenheit 451. And I'm going to pull up for you and read just a brief synopsis of that film so that you have an idea of what it's about. So basically this film is a dystopian novel about the future of future American society that as the result of a major world war or something to that effect, the leaders have decided that they have to eradicate all knowledge from the past. So they start burning all the books and manuscripts. They totally want to eradicate the past because they think that that's how it's going to bring about this world peace, this utopia. And it struck me today when I was thinking about that movie and what I've been seeing going on here at the Synod, that's essentially what these modernists, these men who are in charge, are doing. They're trying to make the youth think that there was no church before Vatican II. More proof of this is the fact that in the Instrumentum Laboris, there's not a single preconciliar document referenced. It's as if the church didn't even exist before 1962, the opening of the council. So that's basically what they're trying, that's the subliminal message, if you will, being fed to the young people, that tradition is dead, tradition doesn't matter. What's ironic about this, and this is something else I wanted to bring up in the press conference, is that, you know, if they're really serious about being real, about being concrete with these young people, as they always say, here's reality. Since the council, the church has been in rapid decline in every measurable way. Vocations, broken families, broken marriages, rampant spirit of the world in the church. The Church of Vatican II is dying, literally, as other commentators have mentioned. And the only signs of life left in the church are where tradition is observed and is thriving. That's where the vocations are. That's where strong and big families are, is where you have the traditional mass, traditional sacraments, traditional catechesis, where you have the truth. But it's like they're trying to, just like the quote-unquote firemen in Fahrenheit 451 who go around burning all the books, it's like these men are bent, diabolically bent on eradicating tradition, on destroying the faith prior to 1962. And in our next video report, we're going to continue on this theme of this hatred, this diabolical hatred of tradition, which is really summed up by the phrase, new paganism. So stay tuned for our next video report. We'll get more into what new paganism is and how it's very alive and well in Rome. Matt Gaspers, Managing Editor of Catholic Family News, reporting for the Fatima Center. God bless you and stay tuned.